Pretty much all I could think while reading this book was that I'm never going to be staying in a hotel ever again. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Adam Samuel, and today, finally, I'm going to be talking about The Shining by Stephen King. Now, just to preface before we start, like I said in my previous video, I've actually never seen the Stanley Kubrick adaptation. I know, that's really bad. I did see the Dr. Sleep movie from last year, but otherwise, the only things I knew about The Shining going in came from references I had seen in other movies and TV shows, the stuff everyone knows, so just bear that in mind for this review. Now let's get into it, and even though this book is pretty old, there will still be no spoilers. So The Shining is the story of Jack Torrance, an aspiring playwright who signs on to be the winter caretaker of a hotel called the Overlook, which is located in a secluded area up in the mountains of Colorado. He also brings along with him his wife Wendy and young son Danny, a 5-year-old boy with a sort of psychic power called, wait for it, The Shining. From there, what happens is what I would describe as a mix between a character study and a ghost story, because the Overlook is haunted and fully stocked with ghosts, and oh boy does it get bad in true Stephen King fashion. Now, I enjoyed this book as a whole. I don't think I loved it, but there were definitely some strong moments that I'm going to remember. One thing that really surprised me, though, is that most of the iconic scenes that I knew going in were actually not in the book. There was no "here's Johnny," no "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," no creepy twin girls saying "come play with us forever and ever." None of that. And the thing is, I kind of miss them. I feel like those scenes were smart additions for the movie because, unfortunately, I found a lot of the early portions of the book to be somewhat dry. That's not to say I didn't like them, it's just that I found some scenes to go on a little too long. This book is all about tone, and while I can see what Stephen King was going for, it did leave the book feeling a little hard to get into, because it does take a lot of time before things really start going. Until then, it's a character story, a story about a guy dealing with his issues that are only made worse by the fact that he's dealing with them in a haunted hotel that's setting him up to spiral. But thankfully, when the story kicks on in the third act, it really kicks on. That third act made this book worth it for me. It pulled me right back in, and reading the last 30 or so pages, I had to almost stand like a football fan during the last tense few minutes of a game. Stephen King has a reputation about not ending his stories well, but I actually found this ending pretty good, and I came away feeling satisfied. Since I did watch the Dr. Sleep movie ahead of time though, the ending was a bit of a head-scratcher, especially with the direction that story goes. This isn't a bad thing, it's just that there was something that was changed, and if you've seen Dr. Sleep, I think you might know what I'm talking about. I'm sure that will all kind of come together when I watch the Stanley Kubrick adaptation, because Dr. Sleep was a sequel to both The Shining book and The Shining movie. As for the characters, they were pretty well done. Jack Torrance is by far the star of the story, and you really want to see him rise above his demons, but at the same time he's dealing with some pretty heavy stuff, and him being in the hotel is only making it worse. Wendy and Danny were also pretty fleshed out. Danny does act way older than a 5-year-old though, which I get was because of his shine, but it was still a little weird for me to hear such a little kid acting and talking like he was much older than he was. I was surprised though by how little his actual powers were able to do. I feel like if I had superpowers and was stuck with what he'd had, I'd be pretty disappointed. I'd be like, what, I can't even lift things with my mind? My favorite character though was Dick Halloran. That guy was the man, and I loved his chapters towards the end of the book. He's not one of my all-time favorite Stephen King characters, but he's definitely up there. He was just such a cool dude. Now, there were some minor issues I did find with the book while I was reading, and these are a bit nitpicky, so feel free to make of them what you will. Something Stephen King does here in his writing is he'll interject the narration with what a character is thinking in the moment. There'll be a sentence and suddenly it will be cut off by the character's thoughts. I get what he was going for, but for me, this made those parts a little awkward to read. These character thoughts weren't always short sentences. Sometimes they got pretty long. I'd be trying to follow the character's thoughts, then be thrown back into the original sentences, having forgotten what that sentence was about. It meant I had to do some rereading just to be sure I was still keeping up. There were also things like the slow parts I mentioned, and that the book took a bit long to get going. And look, I get these are things that are probably not going to bother most people, but they did stand out to me. They never took me out of the story, they were just some things I noticed. Overall, it was a good read. I wouldn't rank it in my personal upper echelon of Stephen King books I've read, but it's not at the bottom either. I would put it solidly in the middle. So that all taken into consideration, my grade for The Shining is 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it wasn't my personal favorite Stephen King novel, but I can also see why other people would enjoy it. For me, it was just a little too slow. So that's my review of The Shining. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments if you would be interested in me doing a review of the Stanley Kubrick adaptation. I still think that could maybe be a fun idea. Anyway, until next time. Bye.